Piracy in Somalia.
Piracy off the coast of Somalia has been a threat to international shipping since the second phase of the Somali civil war in the early 21st century. Since 2005, many international organizations, including the International Maritime Organization and the World Food Programme, have expressed concern over the rise in acts of piracy. Piracy has impeded the delivery of shipments and increased shipping expenses, costing an estimated $6.6 to $6.9 billion a year in global trade according to Oceans Beyond Piracy. According to the German Institute for Economic Research, a veritable industry of profiteers has also risen around the piracy. Insurance companies, in particular, have profited from the pirate attacks, as insurance premiums have increased significantly. A United Nations report and several news sources have suggested that piracy off the coast of Somalia was caused in part by illegal fishing. According to the DIW and the U.S. House Armed Services Committee, the dumping of toxic waste in Somali waters by foreign vessels also severely constrained the ability of local fishermen to earn a living. In response, the fishermen began forming armed groups to stop the foreign ships. They eventually turned to hijacking commercial vessels for ransom as an alternate source of income. In 2009, a survey by Wardia News found that approximately 70% of the local coastal communities at the time strongly support the piracy as a form of national defense of the country's territorial waters. The pirates also believed that they were protecting their fishing grounds and exacting justice and compensation for the marine resources stolen. Some reports have suggested that, in the absence of an effective National Coast Guard following the outbreak of the Civil War and the subsequent disintegration of the armed forces, local fishermen formed organized groups in order to protect their waters. This is reflected in the names adopted by some of the pirate networks, such as the National Volunteer Coast Guard, which are testimony to the pirates' initial motivations. However, as piracy became substantially more lucrative, other reports have speculated that financial gain became the primary motive for the pirates. Combined Task Force 150, a multinational coalition task force, took on the role of fighting piracy off the coast of Somalia by establishing a Maritime Security Patrol Area, MSPA, within the Gulf of Aden. The increasing threat posed by piracy has also caused concern in India since most of its shipping trade routes pass through the Gulf of Aden. The Indian Navy responded to these concerns by deploying a warship in the region on October 23, 2008. In September 2008, Russia announced that it too would join international efforts to combat piracy. Some reports have also accused certain government officials in Somalia of complicity with the pirates, with authorities from the Galmudug administration in the north-central Hobyo district reportedly attempting to use pirate gangs as a bulwark against Islamist insurgents from the nation's southern conflict zones. However, according to UN Secretary-General Ban Ki-moon, both the former and current administrations of the autonomous Puntland region in northeastern Somalia appear to be more actively involved in combating piracy. The latter measures include on-land raids on pirate hideouts, and the construction of a new naval base in conjunction with Saracen International, a UK-based security company. By the first half of 2010, these increased policing efforts by Somali government authorities on land and international naval vessels at sea reportedly contributed to a drop in pirate attacks in the Gulf of Aden from 86 a year prior to 33, forcing pirates to shift attention to other areas such as the Somali Basin and the wider Indian Ocean. By the end of 2011, pirates managed to seize only 4 ships off the coast of Somalia, 22 fewer than the 26 they had captured in each of the 2 previous years. They also attempted unsuccessful attacks on 52 other vessels, 16 fewer than the year prior. As of October 18, 2013, the pirates were holding 1 large ship and an estimated 50 hostages. According to another source, there were 151 attacks on ships in 2011, compared with 127 in 2010, but only 25 successful hijacks compared to 47 in 2010. Pirates were holding 10 vessels and 159 hostages in February 2012. In 2011, pirates earned $146 million, an average of $4.87 million per ship, An estimated 3,000 to 5,000 pirates operated. By February 2012, 1,000 had been captured and were going through legal processes in 21 countries. According to the European Union Naval Force, EU NAVFOR, intensified naval operations had by February 2012 led to a further drop in successful pirate attacks in the Indian Ocean, with the pirates' movements in the region at large also significantly constrained. About 25 military vessels from the EU and NATO countries, the United States, China, Russia, India and Japan patrolled approximately 8.3 km2, 3.2 m square miles, of ocean, an area about the size of Western Europe. On July 16, 2012, the European Union launched a new operation, EUCAP Nestor. An analysis by the Brussels-based Global Governance Institute urged the EU to commit onshore to prevent piracy. By September 2012, the heyday of piracy in the Indian Ocean was reportedly over. Backers were now reportedly reluctant to finance pirate expeditions due to the low rate of success, and pirates were no longer able to reimburse their creditors. According to the International Maritime Bureau, pirate attacks had by October 2012 dropped to a 6-year low, with only one ship attacked in the third quarter compared to 36 during the same period in 2011. By December 2013, the U.S. Office of Naval Intelligence reported that only 9 vessels had been attacked during the year by the pirates, with 0 successful hijackings. Control Risks attributed this 90% decline in pirate activity from the corresponding period in 2012 to the adoption of best management practices by vessel owners and crews, armed private security aboard ships, a significant naval presence, and the development of onshore security forces.
History.
In the early 1980s, prior to the outbreak of the civil war in Somalia, the Somali Ministry of Fisheries and the Coastal Development Agency, CDA, launched a development program focusing on the establishment of agricultural and fishery cooperatives for artisanal fishermen. It also received significant foreign investment funds for various fishery development projects, as the Somali fishing industry was considered to have a lot of potential owing to its unexploited marine stocks. The government at this time permitted foreign fishing through official licensing or joint venture agreements, forming 2 such partnerships in the Iraqi Somali Siadco and Italian Somali Somatel ventures. After the collapse of the central government in the ensuing civil war, the Somali Navy disbanded. With Somali territorial waters undefended, foreign fishing trawlers began illegally fishing on the Somali seaboard and ships from big companies started dumping waste off the coast of Somalia. This led to the erosion of the fish stock. Local fishermen subsequently started to band together to protect their resources. After seeing the profitability of ransom payments, some financiers and former militiamen later began to fund pirate activities, splitting the profits evenly with the pirates. In most of the hijackings, the pirates have not harmed their prisoners. Combined Task Force 150, a multinational coalition task force, subsequently took on the role of fighting piracy off the coast of Somalia by establishing a Maritime Security Patrol Area, MSPA, within the Gulf of Aden. However, many foreign naval vessels chasing pirates were forced to break off when the pirates entered Somali territorial waters. To address this, in June 2008, following a letter from the Somalian Transitional Federal Government, TFG, to the President of the UN Security Council requesting assistance for the TFG's efforts to tackle acts of piracy off the coast of Somalia, the UN Security Council unanimously passed a declaration authorizing nations that have the consent of the Transitional Federal Government to enter Somali territorial waters to deal with pirates. On the advice of lawyers, the Royal Navy and other international naval forces have often released suspected pirates that they have captured because, although the men are frequently armed, they have not been caught engaging in acts of piracy and have thus not technically committed a crime. Due to improved anti-piracy measures, the success of piracy acts on sea decreased dramatically by the end of 2011, with only 4 vessels hijacked in the last quarter versus 17 in the last quarter of the preceding year. In response, pirates resorted to increased hostage-taking on land. The government of the autonomous Puntland region has also made progress in combating piracy, evident in recent interventions by its Maritime Police Force, PMPF. In part to further curtail piracy activity, the London Somalia Conference was convened in February 2012. According to the International Maritime Bureau, pirate attacks in the Indian Ocean had by October 2012 dropped to a 6-year low. Attempted hijackings fell from 237 in 2011 to 75 the following year, with successful attacks plummeting from 28 in 2011 to 14 in 2012. Additionally, only one ship was attacked in the third quarter of 2012 compared to 36 during the same period in 2011.
Summary of recent events.
Somali pirates have attacked hundreds of vessels in the Arabian Sea and Indian Ocean region, though most attacks do not result in a successful hijacking. In 2008, there were 111 attacks which included 42 successful hijackings. However, this is only a fraction of the up to 30,000 merchant vessels which pass through that area. The rate of attacks in January and February 2009 was about 10 times higher than during the same period in 2008, and there have been almost daily attacks in March, with 79 attacks, 21 successful, by mid-April. Most of these attacks occur in the Gulf of Aden, but the Somali pirates have been increasing their range and have started attacking ships as far south as off the coast of Kenya in the Indian Ocean. Below are some notable pirate events which have garnered significant media coverage since 2007. On May 28, 2007, a Chinese sailor was killed by the pirates because the ship's owners failed to meet their ransom demand. On October 5, 2008, the United Nations Security Council adopted Resolution 1838 calling on nations with vessels in the area to apply military force to repress the acts of piracy. At the 101st Council of the International Maritime Organization, India called for a United Nations peacekeeping force under unified command to tackle piracy off Somalia. There has been a general and complete arms embargo against Somalia since 1992. In November 2008, Somali pirates began hijacking ships well outside the Gulf of Aden, perhaps targeting ships headed for the port of Mombasa, Kenya. The frequency and sophistication of the attacks also increased around this time, as did the size of vessels being targeted. Large cargo ships, oil and chemical tankers on international voyages became the new targets of choice for the Somali hijackers. This is in stark contrast to the pirate attacks which were once frequent in the Strait of Malacca, another strategically important waterway for international trade, which were, according to maritime security expert Catherine Zara Raymond, generally directed against smaller, more vulnerable vessels carrying trade across the straits or employed in the coastal trade on either side of the straits. On November 19, 2008, the Indian Navy warship INS Tabar sank a suspected pirate mothership. Later, it was claimed to be a Thai trawler being hijacked by pirates. The Indian Navy later defended its actions by stating that they were fired upon first. On November 21, 2008, BBC News reported that the Indian Navy had received United Nations approval to enter Somali waters to combat piracy. On April 8, 2009, 4 Somali pirates seized the Maersk Alabama 240 nautical miles, 440 kilometers, 280 miles, southeast of the Somalia port city of El. The ship was carrying 17,000 metric tons of cargo, of which 5,000 metric tons were relief supplies bound for Somalia, Uganda, and Kenya. On April 12, 2009, United States Navy SEAL snipers killed the 3 pirates that were holding Captain Richard Phillips hostage aboard a lifeboat from the Maersk Alabama after determining that Captain Phillips' life was in immediate danger. A 4th pirate, Abdul Wali Muse, surrendered and was taken into custody. On May 18, a federal grand jury in New York returned a 10-count indictment against him. On April 20, 2009, United States Secretary of State Hillary Clinton commented on the capture and release of 7 Somali pirates by Dutch naval forces who were on a NATO mission. After an attack on the handy tankers Magic, a petroleum tanker, the Dutch frigate De Zeven Provinciën tracked the pirates back to a pirate mothership, and captured them. They confiscated the pirates' weapons and freed 20 Yemeni fishermen whom the pirates had kidnapped and who had been forced to sail the pirate mothership. Since the Dutch naval forces were part of a NATO exercise, but not on an EU mission, they lacked legal jurisdiction to keep the pirates, so they released them. Clinton stated that this action sends the wrong signal, and that additional coordination was needed among nations. On April 23, 2009, international donors pledged over $250 million for Somalia, including $134 million to increase the African Union peacekeeping mission from 4,350 troops to 8,000 troops and $34 million for Somali security forces. Secretary-General of the United Nations Ban Ki-moon told delegates at a donors' conference sponsored by the UN that piracy is a symptom of anarchy and insecurity on the ground, and that more security on the ground will make less piracy on the seas. Somali President Sharif Ahmed pledged at the conference that he would fight piracy, and to loud applause said that it is our duty to pursue these criminals not only on the high seas, but also on terra firma. The Somali government has not gone after pirates because pirate leaders currently have more power than the government. It has been estimated by piracy experts that in 2008 the pirates gained about $80 million through ransom payments. On May 2, 2009, Somali pirates captured the MV Ariana with its 24 Ukrainian crew. The ship was released on December 10, 2009 after a ransom of almost $3 million was paid. On November 8, 2009, Somali pirates threatened that a kidnapped British couple, the Chandlers, would be punished if a German warship did not release 7 pirates. Omar, one of the pirates holding the British couple, claimed the 7 men were fishermen, but a European Union Naval Force spokesman stated they were captured as they fired AK-47 assault rifles at a French fishing vessel. The Chandlers were released on November 14, 2010 after 388 days of captivity. At least 2 ransom payments, reportedly over £500 had been made. In April 2010, the Central Intelligence Agency, CIA, alluded to possible cover and overt action against the pirates. CIA officials had been publicly warning of this potential threat for months. In a Harper's Magazine article, a CIA official said, "We need to deal with this problem from the beach side, in concert with the ocean side, but we don't have an embassy in Somalia and limited, ineffective intelligence operations. We need to work in Somalia and in Lebanon, where a lot of the ransom money has changed hands. But our operations in Lebanon are a joke, and we have no presence at all in Somalia." In early May 2010, Russian special forces retook a Russian oil tanker that had been hijacked by 11 pirates. 1 died in the assault, and a week later Russian military officials reported that the remainder were freed due to weaknesses in international law but died before reaching the Somali coast. Russian President Dmitry Medvedev had announced the day the ship was retaken that we'll have to do what our forefathers did when they met the pirates until a suitable way of prosecuting them was available. On May 11, 2010, Somali pirates seized a Bulgarian-flagged ship in the Gulf of Aden. The Panagor, with 15 Bulgarian crew members aboard, was en route from the Red Sea to India or Pakistan. This was the first such hijacking of a Bulgarian-flagged ship. On May 12, 2010, Athens announced that Somali pirates had seized a Greek vessel in the Gulf of Aden with at least 24 people on board, including 2 Greek citizens and some Filipinos. The vessel, sailing under the Liberian flag, was transporting iron from Ukraine to China. On January 14, 2011, while speaking to reporters, Commodore Michiel Heijmans of the Royal Netherlands Navy stated that the use of hijacked vessels in more recent hijackings had led to increased range of pirating activities, as well as difficulty to actively thwart future events due to the use of kidnapped sailors as human shields. On January 15, 2011, 13 Somali pirates seized the Samo Jewelry, a Maltese-flagged chemical carrier operated by Samo Shipping, 650 kilometers southeast of Muscat. The Republic of Korea Navy destroyer Choyang shadowed the Samo Jewelry for several days. In the early morning of January 21, 2011, 25 ROK Navy SEALs on small boats launched from the Troyong boarded the Samo Jewelry while the Troyong's Westland Superlynx provided covering fire. 8 pirates were killed and 5 captured in the operation. The crew of 21 was freed with the captain suffering a gunshot wound to the stomach. On January 28, 2011, an Indian Coast Guard aircraft while responding to a distress call from the CMA-CGM Verdi, located 2 skiffs attempting a piracy attack near Lakshadweep. Seeing the aircraft, the skiffs immediately aborted their piracy attempt and dashed towards the mother vessel, MV Prantale 14, a hijacked Thai trawler, which hurriedly hoisted the 2 skiffs on board and moved westward. The Indian Navy deployed the INS Kankasa which located and engaged the mothership 100 nautical miles north of the Minicoy Island. 10 pirates were killed while 15 were apprehended and 20 Thai and Burmese fishermen being held aboard the ship as hostages were rescued. Within a week of its previous success, the Indian Navy captured another hijacked Thai trawler, MV Prantale 11 and captured 28 pirates aboard in an operation undertaken by the INS Ter pursuant to receiving information that a Greek merchant ship had been attacked by pirates on board high-speed boats, although it had managed to avoid capture. When INS Ter ordered the pirate ship to stop and be boarded for inspection, it was fired upon. The INS Ter returned fire in which 3 pirates were injured and caused the pirates to raise a white flag indicating their surrender. The INS Ter subsequently was joined by CGS Samar of the Indian Coast Guard. Officials from the Indian Navy reported that a total of 52 men were apprehended, but the 24 are believed to be Thai fishermen who were hostages of the 28 African pirates. In late February 2011, piracy targeting smaller yachts and collecting ransom made headlines when 4 Americans were killed aboard their vessel, the Quest, by their captors, while a military ship shadowed them. A federal court in Norfolk, Virginia, sentenced 3 members of the gang that seized the yacht to life imprisonment. On February 24, 2011 a Danish family on a yacht were captured by pirates. In March 2011, the Indian Navy intercepted a pirate mother vessel 600 nautical miles west of the Indian coast in the Arabian Sea on Monday and rescued 13 hostages. 61 pirates have also been caught in the operation carried out by Navy's INS Kalpini. In late March 2011, the Indian Navy seized 16 suspected pirates after a 3-hour-long battle in the Arabian Sea. The Navy also rescued 16 crew members of a hijacked Iranian ship west of the Lakshadweep Islands. The crew included 12 Iranians and 4 Pakistanis. On January 5, 2012, AN/60S Hawk from the guided missile destroyer USS Kidd, part of the USS John C. Stennis Carrier Strike Group, detected a suspected pirate skiff alongside the Iranian-flagged fishing boat, Al-Molai. The master of the Al-Molai sent a distress call about the same time reporting pirates were holding him captive. A visit, board, search and seizure team from the Kidd boarded the dhow, a traditional Arabian sailing vessel, and detained 15 suspected pirates who had been holding a 13-member Iranian crew hostage for several weeks. The Al-Molai had been pirated and used as a mother ship for pirate operations throughout the Persian Gulf, members of the Iranian vessel's crew reported.
Pirates. Profile.
Most of the pirates are young. An official list issued in 2010 by the Somali government of 40 apprehended pirate suspects noted that 80%, 32/40, were born in Somalia's southern conflict zones, while only 20%, 8/40, came from the more stable northern regions. As of 2012, the pirates primarily operated from the Galmudug region in the central section of the country. In previous years, they largely ventured to sea from ports in the northeastern Puntland province, until the regional administration launched a major anti-piracy campaign and established a maritime police force, PMPF. According to a 2008 BBC report, the pirates can be divided into 3 main categories. Local fishermen, considered the brains of the pirates' operations due to their skill and knowledge of the sea, ex-militiamen, who previously fought for the local clan warlords, or ex-military from the former Bar government used as the muscle, technical experts, who operate equipment such as GPS devices. The closest Somali term for pirate is Burkad Baydid, which means ocean robber. However, the pirates themselves prefer to be called Bada Dinta Bada or saviors of the sea, often translated as Coast Guard.
Methodology.
The methods used in a typical pirate attack have been analyzed. They show that while attacks can be expected at any time, most occurred during the day. Often in the early hours. They may involve 2 or more skiffs that can reach speeds of up to 25 knots. With the help of motherships that include captured fishing and merchant vessels, the operating range of the skiffs has been increased far into the Indian Ocean. An attacked vessel is approached from quarter or stern. RPGs and small arms are used to intimidate the operator to slow down and allow boarding. Light ladders are brought along to climb aboard. Pirates then will try and get control of the bridge to take operational control of the vessel. According to Sky News, pirates often jettison their equipment in the sea before arrest, as this lowers the likelihood of a successful prosecution.
Weaponry and funding.
The pirates get most of their weapons from Yemen, but a significant number come from Mogadishu, Somalia's capital. Weapons dealers in the capital receive a deposit from a hawala dealer on behalf of the pirates and the weapons are then driven to Puntland where the pirates pay the balance. Various photographs of pirates in situ indicate that their weapons are predominantly AKMs, RPG-7s, AK-47s, and semi-automatic pistols such as the TT-30. Additionally, given the particular origin of their weaponry, they are likely to have hand grenades such as the RGD-5 or F1. The funding of piracy operations is now structured in a stock exchange, with investors buying and selling shares in upcoming attacks in a bourse in Harad. Pirates say ransom money is paid in large denomination US dollar bills. It is delivered to them in burlap sacks which are either dropped from helicopters or cased in waterproof suitcases loaded onto tiny skiffs. Ransom money has also been delivered to pirates via parachute, as happened in January 2009 when an orange container with $3 million cash inside was dropped onto the deck of the supertanker MV Sirius Star to secure the release of ship and crew. To authenticate the banknotes, pirates use currency counting machines, the same technology used at foreign exchange bureaus worldwide. According to one pirate, these machines are, in turn, purchased from business connections in Dubai, Djibouti, and other areas. Hostages seized by the pirates usually have to wait 45 days or more for the ship's owners to pay the ransom and secure their release. In 2008, there were also allegations that the pirates received assistance from some members of the Somali diaspora. Somali expatriates, including some members of the Somali community in Canada, reputedly offered funds, equipment and information. According to the head of the UN's counter-piracy division, Colonel John Steed, the Al-Shabaab group in 2011 increasingly sought to cooperate with the pirate gangs in the face of dwindling funds and resources for their own activities. Steed, however, acknowledged that he had no definite proof of operational ties between the pirates and the Islamist militants. Detained pirates also indicated to UNODC officials that some measure of cooperation with Al-Shabaab militants was necessary, as they have increasingly launched maritime raids from areas in southern Somalia controlled by the insurgent outfit. Al-Shabaab members have also extorted the pirates, demanding protection money from them and forcing seized pirate gang leaders in Harad to hand over 20% of future ransom proceeds. It has been suggested that Al-Qaeda have received funding from pirate operations. A maritime intelligence source told CBS News that it was inconceivable to Western intelligence agencies that Al-Qaeda would not be getting some financial reward from the successful hijackings. They go on to express concern about this funding link being able to keep the group satisfied as piracy gains more publicity and higher ransoms.
Effects and perceptions. Costs.
Both positive and negative effects of piracy have been reported. In 2005, a liquefied petroleum tanker, MV Feisty Gas, was hijacked and ransomed for $315,000 after being held for about 2 weeks. In 2009, pirate income derived from ransoms was estimated at around €42.1 million, about $58 million, rising to $238 million in 2010. The average ransom had risen to $5.4 million in 2010, up from around $150,000 in 2005. However, by 2011, pirate ransom income dropped to $160 million, a downward trend which has been attributed to intensified counter-piracy efforts. Besides the actual cost of paying ransoms, various attempts have been made at gauging indirect costs stemming from the piracy, especially those reportedly incurred over the course of anti-piracy initiatives. During the height of the piracy phenomenon in 2008, local residents complained that the presence of so many armed men made them feel insecure and that their free-spending ways caused wild fluctuations in the local exchange rate. Others faulted them for excessive consumption of alcoholic beverages and cart. A 2010 report suggested that piracy off the coast of Somalia led to a decrease of revenue for Egypt as fewer ships used the Suez Canal, estimated loss of about $642 million, impeded trade with neighboring countries, and negatively impacted tourism and fishing in the Seychelles. According to Sky News, around 50% of the world's containers passed through the Horn of Africa coastline as of 2012. The European Union Naval Force, EU NAVFOR, has a yearly budget of over €8 million earmarked for patrolling the 3.2 million square miles. A 2011 report by Oceans Beyond Piracy, OBP, suggested that the indirect costs of piracy were much higher and estimated to be between $6.6 to $6.9 billion, as they also included insurance, naval support, legal proceedings, rerouting of slower ships, and individual protective steps taken by ship owners. Another report from 2011 published by the consultancy firm Geopolicity Incorporated investigated the causes and consequences of international piracy, with a particular focus on such activity off the coast of Somalia. The paper asserted that what began as an attempt in the mid-1990s by Somali fishermen to protect their territorial waters has extended far beyond their seaboard and grown into an emerging market in its own right. Due to potentially substantial financial rewards, the report hypothesized that the number of new pirates could swell by 400 persons annually, that pirate ransom income could in turn rise to $400 million per year by 2015, and that piracy costs as a whole could increase to $15 billion over the same period. According to a 2012 investigative piece by the Somalia Report, the OBP paper and other similar reports that attempt to calibrate the global cost of piracy produce inaccurate estimates based on a variety of factors. Most saliently, instead of comparing the actual costs of piracy with the considerable benefits derived from the phenomenon by the maritime industry and local parties capitalizing on capacity-building initiatives, the OBP paper conflated the alleged piracy costs with the large premiums made by insurance companies and lumped them together with governmental and societal costs. The report also exaggerated the impact that piracy has had on the shipping sector, an industry which has grown steadily in size from 25,000 billion tons per mile to 35,000 billion tons per mile since the rise of Indian Ocean piracy in 2005. Moreover, the global costs of piracy reportedly represent a small fraction of total maritime shipping expenses and are significantly lower than more routine costs, such as those brought on by port theft, bad weather conditions or fuel-related issues. In the United States alone, the National Cargo Security Council estimated that between $10–15 billion were stolen from ports in 2003, a figure several times higher than the projected global cost of piracy. Additionally, while the OBP paper alleged that pirate activity has had a significantly negative impact on regional economies, particularly the Kenyan tourism industry, tourist-derived revenue in Kenya rose by 32% in 2011. According to the Somalia Report investigation, the OBP paper also did not factor into its calculations the overall decline in successful pirate attacks beginning in the second half of 2011, a downward trend largely brought about by the increasing use of armed guards. According to Admiral Terry McKnight, ransom demands and payments have risen exponentially, and the financiers and pirates decided they are willing to wait as long as it takes to receive high seven-figure payouts.
Benefits.
Some benefits from the piracy have also been noted. In the earlier years of the phenomenon in 2008, it was reported that many local residents in pirate hubs such as Harad here appreciated the rejuvenating effect that the pirates' on-shore spending and restocking had on their small towns, a presence which often provided jobs and opportunity when there were comparatively fewer. Entire hamlets were in the process reportedly transformed into boom towns, with local shop owners and other residents using their gains to purchase items such as generators for uninterrupted electricity. However, the election of a new administration in 2009 in the northeastern Puntland regions saw a sharp decrease in pirate operations, as the provincial authorities launched a comprehensive anti-piracy campaign and established an official maritime police force, PMPF. Since 2010, pirates have mainly operated from the Galmudug region to the south. According to the Somalia report, the significant infrastructural development evident in Puntland's urban centers has also mainly come from a combination of government development programs, internal investment by local residents returning to their home regions following the civil war in the south, and especially remittance funds sent by the sizable Somali diaspora. The latter contributions have been estimated at around $1.3–2 billion a year, exponentially dwarfing pirate ransom proceeds, which total only a few $1 million annually and are difficult to track in terms of spending. Additionally, impoverished fishermen in Kenya's Malindi area in the southeastern African Great Lakes region have reported their largest catches in 40 years, catching hundreds of kilos of fish and earning 50 times the average daily wage as a result. They attribute the recent abundance and variety of marine stock to the pirates scaring away predatory foreign fishing trawlers, which have for decades deprived local dhows of a livelihood. According to marine biologists, indicators are that the local fishery is recovering because of the lack of commercial-scale fishing. Piracy off the coast of Somalia also appears to have a positive impact on the problem of overfishing in Somali waters by foreign vessels. A comparison has been made with the situation in Tanzania further to the south, which is also affected by predatory fishing by foreign ships and generally lacks the means to effectively protect and regulate its territorial waters. There, catches have dropped to dramatically low levels, whereas in Somalia they have risen back to more acceptable levels since the beginning of the piracy.
Casualties.
Piracy off the coast of Somalia has reportedly produced some casualties. According to many interviewed maritime security firms, ship owner groups, lawyers and insurance companies, fear of pirate attacks has increased the likelihood of violent encounters at sea, as untrained or over-eager vessel guards have resorted to shooting indiscriminately without first properly assessing the actual threat level. In the process, they have killed both pirates and sometimes innocent fishermen, as well as jeopardized the reputation of private maritime security firms with their reckless gun use. Since many of the new maritime security companies that have emerged often also enlist the services of off-duty policemen and former soldiers that saw combat in Iraq and Afghanistan, worries of a black water out in the Indian Ocean have only intensified. Of the 4,185 seafarers whose ships had been attacked by the pirates and the 1,090 who were held hostage in 2010, a third were reportedly abused. Some captives have also indicated that they were used as human shields for pirate attacks while being held hostage. According to Reuters, of the 3,500 captured during a 4-year period, 62 died. The causes of death included suicide and malnutrition, with 25 of the deaths attributed to murder according to Intercargo. In some cases, the captives have also reported being tortured. Many seafarers are also left traumatized after release.
Profiteers.
According to the German Institute for Economic Research, DIW, a veritable industry of profiteers has also risen around the piracy. Insurance companies, in particular, have profited from the pirate attacks, as insurance premiums have increased significantly. DIW reports that, in order to keep premiums high, insurance firms have not demanded that ship owners take security precautions that would make hijackings more difficult. For their part, shipping companies often do not comply with naval guidelines on how best to prevent pirate attacks in order to cut down on costs. In addition, security contractors in the German arms industry have profited from the phenomenon.
Sovereignty and environmental protection.
The former UN envoy for Somalia, Ahmed Ould Abdullah, has stated that, because there is no effective government, there is much irregular fishing from European and Asian countries, and that the UN has what he described as reliable information that European and Asian companies are dumping toxic and nuclear waste off the Somali coastline. However, he stresses that no government has endorsed this act, and that private companies and individuals acting alone are responsible. In addition, Ould Abdullah told the press that he approached several international NGOs, such as Global Witness, to trace the illicit fishing and waste dumping. He added that he believes the toxic waste dumping is a disaster off the Somali coast, a disaster for the Somali environment, the Somali population, and that what he terms this illegal fishing, illegal dumping of waste helps fuel the civil war in Somalia, since the illegal foreign fishermen pay off corrupt local officials or warlords for protection or to secure counterfeit licenses. Ould Abdullah noted that piracy will not prevent waste dumping. Somali pirates, which captured MV Fana, a Ukrainian ship carrying tanks and military hardware, accused European firms of dumping toxic waste off the Somali coast and declared that the $8 million ransom for the return of the ship will go towards cleaning up the waste. The ransom demand is a means of reacting to the toxic waste that has been continually dumped on the shores of our country for nearly 20 years, Januna Ali Jama, a spokesman for the pirates, said. The Somali coastline has been destroyed, and we believe this money is nothing compared to the devastation that we have seen on the seas. These issues have generally not been reported in international media when reporting on piracy. According to Muammar al-Gaddafi, it is a response to greedy Western nations, who invade and exploit Somalia's water resources illegally. It is not a piracy, it is self-defense. Pirate leader Sugiul Ali said their motive was to stop illegal fishing and dumping in our waters. We don't consider ourselves sea bandits. We consider sea bandits those who illegally fish and dump in our seas and dump waste in our seas and carry weapons in our seas. Also, the independent Somali news site Warda News found that 70% strongly supported the piracy as a form of national defense of the country's territorial waters.
Waste dumping.
Following the Indian Ocean tsunami of December 2004, there have emerged allegations that after the outbreak of the Somali civil war in late 1991, Somalia's long, remote shoreline was used as a dump site for the disposal of toxic waste. The huge waves which battered northern Somalia after the tsunami are believed to have stirred up tons of nuclear and toxic waste that was illegally dumped in Somali waters by several European firms, front companies created by the Italian mafia. The European Green Party followed up these revelations by presenting before the press and the European Parliament in Strasbourg copies of contracts signed by two European companies, the Italian-Swiss firm, Accia Partners, and an Italian waste broker, Progresso, and representatives of the warlords then in power, to accept 10 million tons of toxic waste in exchange for $80 million, then about $60 million. According to a report by the United Nations Environment Programme, UNEP, assessment mission, there are far higher than normal cases of respiratory infections, mouth ulcers and bleeding, abdominal hemorrhages and unusual skin infections among many inhabitants of the areas around the northeastern towns of Hobyo and Benadir on the Indian Ocean coast, diseases consistent with radiation sickness. UNEP continues that the current situation along the Somali coastline poses a very serious environmental hazard not only in Somalia but also in the Eastern Africa sub-region. Under Article 9(1)(d) of the Basel Convention on the Control of Transboundary Movements of Hazardous Wastes and Their Disposal, it is illegal for any transboundary movement of hazardous wastes or other wastes, that results in deliberate disposal, for example dumping, of hazardous wastes or other wastes in contravention of this convention and of general principles of international law. According to Nick Nuttall of the United Nations Environmental Programme, Somalia has been used as a dumping ground for hazardous waste starting in the early 1990s, and continuing through the civil war there, and European companies found it to be very cheap to get rid of the waste, costing as little as $2.50 a ton, where waste disposal costs in Europe are closer to $1,000 per ton.
Illegal fishing.
At the same time, foreign trawlers began illegally fishing Somalia's seas, with an estimated $300 million of tuna, shrimp, and lobster being taken each year, depleting stocks previously available to local fishermen. Through interception with speedboats, Somali fishermen tried to either dissuade the dumpers and trawlers or levy a tax on them as compensation, as Sigil Ali's previously mentioned quote notes. Peter Liu, a Somalia piracy expert at the University of St Andrews, says it's almost like a resource swap. Somalis collect up to $100 million a year from pirate ransoms off their coasts, and the Europeans and Asians poach around $300 million a year in fish from Somali waters. The UK's Department for International Development, DFID, issued a report in 2005 stating that, between 2003 and 2004, Somalia lost about $100 million in revenue due to illegal tuna and shrimp fishing in the country's exclusive economic zone by foreign trawlers. According to Roger Middleton of Chatham House, the problem of overfishing and illegal fishing in Somali waters is a very serious one, and does affect the livelihoods of people inside Somalia. The dumping of toxic waste on Somalia's shores is a very serious issue, which will continue to affect people in Somalia long after the war has ended, and piracy is resolved. To lure fish to their traps, foreign trawlers reportedly also use fishing equipment under prohibition, such as nets with very small mesh sizes and sophisticated underwater lighting systems. Under Article 56, 1b, of the Law of the Sea Convention. Article 57 of the Convention in turn outlines the limit of that jurisdiction. According to Amedeo Policanti, a researcher from Goldsmiths College, University of London, the devastating effect of these types of corporate-led form of capital accumulation cannot be overstated in a region where, according to the most recent reports of the UNEP, over 30 million people are dependent on maritime and coastal resources for their daily livelihoods. Nevertheless, there was little or no international will to insist on the implementation of the United Nations Conventions on the Law of the Sea, which banish both overfishing and toxic dumping in oceanic waters. This form of illegality, despite the environmental disruption and the high cost in human life it implied, was not perceived as an existential threat by states, and it was therefore left unchecked. Only when piracy appeared in the region the lack of effective sovereign control over the Gulf of Aden was problematized.
Anti-piracy measures. Self-defense.
The fourth volume of the handbook, Best Management Practices to Deter Piracy off the Coast of Somalia and in the Arabian Sea Area, known as BMP4, is the current authoritative guide for merchant ships on self-defense against pirates. The guide is issued and updated by a consortium of interested international shipping and trading organizations including the EU, NATO and the International Maritime Bureau. It is distributed primarily by the Maritime Security Centre, Horn of Africa, MSCHOA, the Planning and Coordination Authority for EU Naval Forces, EUNAVFOR. BMP4 encourages vessels to register their voyages through the region with MSCHOA, as this registration is a key component of the operation of the International Recommended Transit Corridor, IRTC, the Navy patrol route through the Gulf of Aden. BMP4 also contains a chapter entitled Self-Protective Measures, which lays out a list of steps a merchant vessel can take on its own to make itself less of a target to pirates and make it better able to repel an attack if one occurs. This list includes doing things like ringing the deck of the ship with razor wire, rigging fire hoses to spray seawater over the side of the ship, to hinder boardings, having a distinctive pirate alarm, hardening the bridge against gunfire and creating a citadel, where the crew can retreat in the event pirates get on board. Other unofficial self-defense measures that can be found on merchant vessels include the setting up of mannequins posing as armed guards or firing flares at the pirates. Though it varies by country, generally peacetime law in the 20th and 21st centuries has not allowed merchant vessels to carry weapons. As a response to the rise in modern piracy, however, the U.S. government changed its rules so that it is now possible for U.S.-flagged vessels to embark a team of armed private security guards. Other countries and organizations have similarly followed suit. This has given birth to a new breed of private security companies who provide training and protection for crew members and cargo and have proved effective in countering pirate attacks. The USCG leaves it to ship owners' discretion to determine if those guards will be armed. Seychelles has become a central location for international anti-piracy operations, hosting the Anti-Piracy Operations Center for the Indian Ocean. In 2008, VSOS became the first authorized armed maritime security company to operate in the Indian Ocean region. With safety trials complete in the late 2000s, laser dazzlers have been developed for defensive purposes on super yachts. They can be effective up to 4 kilometers. 2.5 miles, with the effects going from mild disorientation to flash blindness at closer range. In February 2012, Italian Marines based on the tanker Enrica Lexi allegedly fired on an Indian fishing trawler off Kerala, killing 2 of her 11 crew. The Marines allegedly mistook the fishing vessel as a pirate vessel. The incident sparked a diplomatic row between India and Italy. Enrica Lexi was ordered into Kochi where her crew were questioned by officers of the Indian police. The fact is still sub judice and its legal eventual outcome could influence future deployment of VPDs, since states will be either encouraged or discouraged to provide them depending on whether functional immunity is ultimately granted or denied to the Italians. Another similar incident has been reported to have happened in the Red Sea between the coasts of Somalia and Yemen, involving the death of a Yemeni fisherman allegedly at the hands of a Russian Vessel Protection Detachment, VPD, on board a Norwegian-flagged vessel. However, despite VPD deployment being controversial because of these incidents, according to the Associated Press, during a United Nations Security Council conference about piracy, U.S. Ambassador Susan Rice told the Council that no ship carrying armed guards has been successfully attacked by pirates, and French Ambassador Gerard Araud stressed that private guards do not have the deterrent effect that government-posted marine and sailors and naval patrols have in warding off attacks.
Military presence.
The military response to pirate attacks has brought about a rare show of unity by countries that are either openly hostile to each other, or at least wary of cooperation, military or otherwise. Currently there are 3 international naval task forces in the region, with numerous national vessels and task forces entering and leaving the region, engaging in counter-piracy operations for various lengths of time. The 3 international task forces which compose the bulk of counter-piracy operations are Combined Task Force 150, whose overarching mission is Operation Enduring Freedom, Combined Task Force 151, which was set up in 2009 specifically to run counter-piracy operations, and the EU Naval Task Force operating under Operation Atalanta. All counter-piracy operations are coordinated through a monthly planning conference called Shared Awareness and Deconfliction, SHADE. Originally having representatives only from NATO, the EU, and the Combined Maritime Forces, CMF, headquarters in Bahrain, it now regularly attracts representatives from over 20 countries. As part of the international effort, Europe plays a significant role in combating piracy off the coast of the Horn of Africa. The European Union under the Common Security and Defence Policy, CSDP, launched EU NAVFOR Somalia, Operation Atalanta, in support of Resolutions 1814, 2008, 1816, 2008, 1838, 2008, and 1846, 2008, of the United Nations Security Council, UNSC. This operation is working to protect humanitarian aid and reduce the disruption to the shipping routes and the destabilizing of the maritime environment in the region. To date, 26 countries have brought some kind of contribution to the operation. 13 EU member states have provided an operational contribution to EU NAVFOR either with ships, with maritime patrol and reconnaissance aircraft, or with Vessel Protection Detachment (VPD) team. This includes France, Spain, Germany, Greece, Sweden, Netherlands, Italy, Belgium, United Kingdom, also hosting the EU NAVFOR operational headquarters, Portugal, Luxembourg, Malta and Estonia. 9 other EU member states have participated in the effort, providing military staff to work at the EU NAVFOR operational headquarters, Northwood Headquarters, UK, onboard units. These are Cyprus, Romania, Bulgaria, Slovenia, Czech Republic, Hungary, Poland, Ireland and Finland. Finally, 4 non-EU member states, Norway, which has also provided an operational contribution with a warship regularly deploying, Croatia, Ukraine and Montenegro, have so far also brought their contribution to EU NAVFOR. At any one time, the European force size fluctuates according to the monsoon seasons, which determine the level of piracy. It typically consists of 5 to 10 surface combatants, naval ships, 1 to 2 auxiliary ships and 2 to 4 maritime patrol and reconnaissance aircraft. Including land-based personnel, Operation Atalanta consists of a total of around 2,000 military personnel. EU NAVFOR operates in a zone comprising the south of the Red Sea, the Gulf of Aden and the western part of the Indian Ocean including the Seychelles, which represents an area of 2 million square nautical miles. Additionally, other non-NATO and non-EU countries have, at one time or another, contributed to counter-piracy operations. Australia, China, Pakistan, Iran, Japan, South Korea, Malaysia, Pakistan, Russia, Thailand, and Saudi Arabia have all sent ships, surveillance aircraft or personnel to the region, sometimes joining with the existing CTFs, sometimes operating independently. There are, and have been, several naval deployments by non-multinational task forces in the past. Some notable ones include: on May 29, 2009, Australia pledged its support, redirecting Australian warship HMAS Warramunga from duties in the Persian Gulf to assist in the fighting of piracy. Royal Australian Air Force Lockheed P-3 Orion surveillance planes patrol the ocean between the southern coast of Oman and the Horn of Africa. The anti-piracy flights are operated from UAE. On June 12, 2009, Bulgaria also announced plans to join the anti-piracy operations in the Gulf of Aden and protect Bulgarian shipping, by sending a frigate with a crew of 130 sailors. On December 26, 2008, China dispatched 2 destroyers Heiko, 171, Wuhan, 169, and the supply ship Shanhu, 887, to the Gulf of Aden. A team of 16 Chinese Special Forces members from its Marine Corps armed with attack helicopters were on board. Subsequent to their initial deployment, China has maintained a 3-ship flotilla of 2 warships and 1 supply ship in the Gulf of Aden by assigning ships to the area on a 3-month basis. The Danish Institute for Military Studies has in a report proposed to establish a regionally based maritime unit, a Greater Horn of Africa Sea Patrol, to carry out surveillance in the area to secure free navigation and take on tasks such as fishery inspection and environmental monitoring. A Greater Horn of Africa Sea Patrol would comprise elements from the coastal states, from Egypt in the north to Tanzania in the south. The unit would be established with the support of the states that already have a naval presence in the area. In February 2010, Danish special forces from the Absalon freed 25 people from the Antigua and Barbuda flagged vessel Aria after it was hijacked by pirates off the Somali coast. The crew members had locked themselves into a storeroom. To protect Indian ships and Indian citizens employed in seafaring duties, the Indian Navy commenced anti-piracy patrols in the Gulf of Aden from October 8, 2003. A total of 21 ships have been deployed in the Gulf of Aden since 8 Oct. In addition to escorting Indian-flagged ships, ships of other countries have also been escorted. Merchant ships are currently being escorted along the entire length of the 490 nanometers long and 20 nanometers wide, Internationally Recommended Transit Corridor, IRTC. that has been promulgated for use by all merchant vessels. A total of 1181 ships, 144 Indian-flagged and 1037 foreign-flagged from different countries, have been escorted by IN ships in the Gulf of Aden since 8 Oct. During its deployments for anti-piracy operations, the Indian naval ships have prevented 15 piracy attempts on merchant vessels. In response to the increased activity of the INS Tabar, India sought to augment its naval force in the Gulf of Aden by deploying the larger INS Mysore to patrol the area. Somalia also added India to its list of states, including the US and France, which are permitted to enter its territorial waters, extending up to 12 nautical miles, 22 kilometers, 14 miles, from the coastline, in an effort to check piracy. An Indian naval official confirmed receipt of a letter acceding to India's prerogative to check such piracy. We had put up a request before the Somali government to play a greater role in suppressing piracy in the Gulf of Aden in view of the United Nations resolution. The TFG government gave its nod recently. India also expressed consideration to deploy up to 4 more warships in the region. On March 14, 2011, the Indian Navy reportedly had seized 61 pirates and rescued 13 crew from the vessel, which had been used as a mother ship from where pirates launched attacks around the Indian Ocean. Meanwhile, a Bangladeshi ship hijacked by pirates last year was freed after a ransom was paid. On January 28, 2009, Japan announced its intention of sending a naval task force to join international efforts to stop piracy off the coast of Somalia. The deployment would be highly unusual, as Japan's non-aggressive constitution means Japanese military forces can only be used for defensive purposes. The issue has been controversial in Japan, although the ruling party maintains this should be seen as fighting crime on the high seas, rather than a military operation. The process of the Prime Minister of Japan, Taro Asu, giving his approval is expected to take approximately 1 month. However, the Japanese Maritime Self-Defense Force, JMSDF, and the Japanese government face legal problems on how to handle attacks by pirates against ships that either have Japanese personnel, cargo or are under foreign control instead of being under Japanese control, as current Article 9 regulations would hamper their actions when deployed to Somalia. It was reported on February 4, 2009, that the JMSDF was sending a fact-finding mission led by General Nakatani to the region prior to the deployment of the Murasame-class destroyer JDS-DD-106 Samadare and the Taken Army-class destroyer JDS-DD-113 Sazanami to the coast of Somalia with a 13-man team composed of Japanese Ministry of Defense personnel, with members coming from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and the JMSDF to visit Yemen, Djibouti, Oman, and Bahrain from 8 to February 20. Both JMSDF vessels are units of the 8th Escort Division of the 4th Escort Flotilla based in Kure, Hiroshima Prefecture. The JMSDF Special Forces Unit, the Special Boarding Unit, is also scheduled to potentially deploy to Somalia. The SBU has been deployed alongside the 2 destroyers to Somalia on March 14, 2009. According to JMSDF officials, the deployment would regain the trust of the shipping industry, which was lost during the war. The JMSDF task force would be deployed off the coast of Somalia for 4 months. In its first mission, the Taken Army-class destroyer JDS-DD-113 Sazanami was able to ward off pirates attempting to hijack a Singaporean cargo ship. In addition, JMSDF P-3CS are to be deployed in June from Djibouti to conduct surveillance on the Somali coast. The House of Representatives of Japan has passed an anti-piracy bill, calling for the JMSDF to protect non-Japanese ships and nationals, though there are some concerns that the pro-opposition House of Councillors may reject it. The Diet of Japan has passed an anti-piracy law that called for JMSDF forces to protect all foreign ships traveling off the coast of Somalia aside from protecting Japanese-owned manned ships, despite a veto from the House of Councillors, which the House of Representatives has overturned. In 2009, the destroyers Harazim and DD-154 Imagiri left port from Yokosuka to replace the 2 destroyers that had been dispatched earlier on March 2009. Under current arrangements, Japan Coast Guard officers would be responsible for arresting pirates since SDF forces are not allowed to have powers of arrest. The South Korean Navy is also making plans to participate in anti-piracy operations after sending officers to visit the U.S. Navy's Fifth Fleet in Bahrain and in Djibouti. The South Korean cabinet had approved a government plan to send in South Korean Navy ships and soldiers to the coast of Somalia to participate in anti-pirate operations. The ROKN was sending the Chungmugong Yi Sun-sin-class destroyer DDH-976 Munmu the Great to the coast of Somalia. The Kiona Unit Task Force was also deployed in Somalia under CTF 151. Norway announced on February 27, 2009, that it would send the frigate HMS Fridtjof Nansen to the coast of Somalia to fight piracy. Royal Norwegian Navy Fridtjof Nansen joined EU NAVFOR's International Naval Force in August. In 2008, Pakistan offered the services of the Pakistan Navy to the United Nations in order to help combat the piracy in Somalia provided a clear mandate was given. The Philippine government ordered the dispatch of a naval gunfire liaison officer to work with the U.S. Navy's Fifth Fleet as part of its contribution against piracy. In April 2011, the Portuguese Air Force contributed to Operation Ocean Shield by sending a P-3C which had early success when on its fifth mission detected a pirate whaler with 2 attack skiffs. Russia also chose to send more warships to combat piracy near Somalia following the announcement from the International Maritime Bureau terming the menace as having gone out of control. Due to their proximity to Somalia, the Coast Guard of Seychelles has become increasingly involved in counter-piracy in the region. On March 30, 2010, a Seychelles Coast Guard Trincat-class patrol vessel rescued 27 hostages and sank 2 pirate vessels. The Spanish Air Force deployed P-3s to assist the international effort against piracy in Somalia. On October 29, 2008, a Spanish P-3 aircraft patrolling the coast of Somalia reacted to a distress call from an oil tanker in the Gulf of Aden. In order to deter the pirates, the aircraft flew over the pirates 3 times as they attempted to board the tanker, dropping a smoke bomb on each pass. After the 3rd pass, the attacking pirate boats broke off their attack. Later, on March 29, 2009, the same P-3 pursued the assailants of the German Navy tanker Spessart, resulting in the capture of the pirates. The Swiss government calls for the deployment of Army Reconnaissance Detachment operators to combat Somali piracy with no agreement in Parliament as the proposal was rejected after it was voted. Javier Solana had said that Swiss soldiers could serve under the EU's umbrella. The U.S. Coast Guard and U.S. Navy both support the actions of the Combined Task Force 151 in their anti-piracy missions in the area. Brian Murphy, Associated Press, reported on January 8, 2009 that Rear Admiral Terence E. McKnight, U.S. Navy, is to command a new multinational naval force to confront piracy off the coast of Somalia. This new anti-piracy force was designated Combined Task Force 151, CTF-151, a multinational task force of the Combined Maritime Forces, CMF. The USS San Antonio was designated as the flagship of Combined Task Force 151, serving as an afloat forward staging base, AFSB, for the following force elements. 14-member U.S. Navy Visit, Board, Search, and Seizure, VBSS, Team, 8-member U.S. Coast Guard Law Enforcement Detachment, LEDET, 405, Scout Sniper Platoon, 2nd Battalion, 6th Marine Regiment, 26th Marine Expeditionary Unit, 26 MEU, cross-decked from the USS Iwo Jima, LHD-7, 3rd Platoon of the 2nd Battalion, 6th Marines Gulf Infantry Company, a military police detachment, and intelligence personnel, Fleet Surgical Team 8 with Level 2 surgical capability to deal with trauma, surgical, critical care and medical evacuation needs. Approximately 75 Marines with 6 AH-1W Super Cobra and 2 UH-1N Huey helicopters from the Marine Medium Helicopter Squadron 264, HOM 264, of the 26th MEU cross-decked from the USS Iwo Jima, 3 HH-60H helicopters from Helicopter Anti-Submarine Squadron 3, HS-3, cross-decked from the template, UBR/SS. Initially, CTF-151 consisted of the San Antonio, USS Mahan, DDG-72, and HMS Portland, F-79, with additional warships expected to join this force. In January 2012, U.S. military forces freed an American and a Danish hostage after a gun battle with pirates during a nighttime helicopter raid in Somalia. 2 U.S. helicopters attacked the site where the hostages were being held, 12 miles north of the town of Adado. 9 pirates were killed. There were no U.S. casualties. In May 2012, EU NAVFOR conducted their first raid on pirate bases on the Somali mainland, destroying 5 pirate boats. The EU forces were transported by helicopter to the bases near the port of Haradhia, a well-known pirate lair. The operation was carried out with the full support of the Somali government. Southern African waters are becoming an increasingly attractive alternative to the more protected Eastern African sea lanes. The recent rise in counter-piracy patrols is pushing more pirates down the coastline into unprotected areas of the Indian Ocean, which will require the joint navies' current patrols to widen their search area. A maritime conference was also held in Mombasa to discuss the rising concern of regional piracy with a view to give regional and world governments recommendations to deal with the menace. The International Transport Workers Federation, ITWF, organized the Regional African Maritime Unions Conference, the first of its kind in Africa. Godfrey Matata Onyango, Executive Secretary of the Northern Corridor Transit Coordination Authority said, "We cannot ignore to discuss the piracy menace because it poses a huge challenge to the maritime industry and if not controlled, it threats to chop off the regional internal trade. The cost of shipping will definitely rise as a result of the increased war insurance premium due to the high risk off the Gulf of Aden."
Vessels in operation.
Vessels, aircraft and personnel whose primary mission is to conduct anti-piracy activities come from different countries and are assigned to the following missions: Operation Ocean Shield, NATO and partner states, Atalanta, EU and partner states, Combined Task Force 151, independent missions of China, India, Iran, Japan, Malaysia, and Russia. Additionally, resources dedicated for the War on Terror missions of Combined Task Force 150 and Enduring Freedom, Horn of Africa also operate against the pirates.
Somalia. Puntland.
Between 2009 and 2010, the government of the autonomous Puntland region in northeastern Somalia enacted a number of reforms and preemptive measures as a part of its officially declared anti-piracy campaign. The latter included the arrest, trial and conviction of pirate gangs, as well as raids on suspected pirate hideouts and confiscation of weapons and equipment. Ensuring the adequate coverage of the regional authorities' anti-piracy efforts by both local and international media. Sponsoring a social campaign led by Islamic scholars and community activists aimed at discrediting piracy and highlighting its negative effects. And partnering with the NATO alliance to combat pirates at sea. In May 2010, construction also began on a new naval base in the town of Bandar located 25 kilometers west of Bosaso, the commercial capital of Puntland. The facility is funded by Puntland's regional government in conjunction with Saracen International, a UK-based security company, and is intended to assist in more effectively combating piracy. The base will include a centre for training recruits, and a command post for the naval force. These numerous security measures appear to have borne fruit, as many pirates were apprehended in 2010, including a prominent leader. Puntland's security forces also reportedly managed to force out the pirate gangs from their traditional safe havens such as El and Gayret, with the pirates now primarily operating from Hobyo, Eldanan and Haradhia in the neighbouring Galmudug region. Following a transitional federal government Puntland cooperative agreement in August 2011 calling for the creation of a Somali Marine Force, of which the already established Puntland Maritime Police Force, PMPF, would form a part, the Puntland administration resumed training of PMPF naval officials. The Puntland Maritime Police Force is a locally recruited, professional maritime security force that is primarily aimed at fighting piracy off the coast of Somalia, safeguarding the nation's marine resources, and providing logistics support to humanitarian efforts. Supported by the United Arab Emirates, PMPF officials are also trained by the Japanese Coast Guard.
Galmudug.
Government officials from the Galmudug administration in the north-central Hobyo district have also reportedly attempted to use pirate gangs as a bulwark against Islamist insurgents from southern Somalia's conflict zones. Other pirates are alleged to have reached agreements of their own with the Islamist groups, although a senior commander from the Hizbul Islam militia vowed to eradicate piracy by imposing Sharia law when his group briefly took control of Haradhir in May 2010 and drive out the local pirates. By the first half of 2010, these increased policing efforts by Somali government authorities on land along with international naval vessels at sea reportedly contributed to a drop in pirate attacks in the Gulf of Aden from 86 a year prior to 33, forcing pirates to shift attention to other areas such as the Somali Basin and the wider Indian Ocean.
Somaliland.
The government of Somaliland, a self-declared republic that is internationally recognized as an autonomous region of Somalia, has adopted stringent anti-piracy measures, arresting and imprisoning pirates forced to make port in Berbera. According to officials in Hargeisa, Somaliland's capital, the Somaliland Coast Guard acts as an effective deterrent to piracy in waters under its jurisdiction.
Arab League Summit.
Following the seizure by Somali pirates of an Egyptian ship and a Saudi oil supertanker worth $100 million of oil, the Arab League, after a meeting in Cairo, has called for an urgent summit for countries overlooking the Red Sea, including Egypt, Saudi Arabia, Sudan, Somalia, Jordan, Djibouti and Yemen. The summit would offer several solutions for the piracy problem, in addition to suggesting different routes and looking for a more secure passageway for ships. Another possible means of intervention by the Red Sea Arab nations' navy might be to assist the current NATO anti-piracy effort as well as other navies.
United Nations.
In June 2008, following a letter from the Somalian Transitional Federal Government, TFG, to the President of the UN Security Council requesting assistance for the TFG's efforts to tackle acts of piracy off the coast of Somalia, the UN Security Council unanimously passed a declaration authorizing nations that have the consent of the Transitional Federal Government to enter Somali territorial waters to deal with pirates. The measure, which was sponsored by France, the United States and Panama, lasted 6 months. France initially wanted the resolution to include other regions with pirate problems, such as West Africa, but were opposed by Vietnam, Libya and most importantly by veto-holding China, who wanted the sovereignty infringement limited to Somalia. The UN Security Council adopted a resolution on November 20, 2008, that was proposed by Britain to introduce tougher sanctions against Somalia over the country's failure to prevent a surge in sea piracy. The US circulated the draft resolution that called upon countries having naval capacities to deploy vessels and aircraft to actively fight against piracy in the region. The resolution also welcomed the initiatives of the European Union, NATO and other countries to counter piracy off the coast of Somalia. U.S. Alternate Representative for Security Council Affairs Rosemary DiCarlo said that the draft resolution calls on the Secretary-General to look at a long-term solution to escorting the safe passage of World Food Programme ships. Even Somalia's Islamist militants stormed the Somali port of Haradhir in the hunt for pirates behind the seizure of a Saudi supertanker, the MV Syria Star. A clan elder affiliated with the Islamists said the Islamists arrived searching for the pirates and the whereabouts of the Saudi ship. "I saw 4 cars full of Islamists driving in the town from corner to corner. The Islamists say they will attack the pirates for hijacking a Muslim ship." On December 17, 2008, the UN Security Council unanimously adopted a tougher resolution, allowing for the first time international land and sea occupations in the pursuit of pirates. 4 ships, a Chinese fishing boat, a Turkish cargo ship, a Malaysian tug, and a private yacht was seized by pirates that same day. Resolution 1851 takes current anti-piracy measures a step further. A Russian drafted resolution, Security Council Resolution 1918, adopted on April 27, 2010, called on all states to criminalize piracy and suggested the possibility of establishing a regional or international tribunal to prosecute suspected pirates. Pursuant to Resolution 1976 and Resolution 2015, both adopted in 2011, the United Nations Security Council has called for more structured international support for Somalia's transitional federal government as well as Puntland and other regional authorities in Somalia in creating counter-piracy special courts, laws, prisons and policing capabilities. Resolution 1976 also encourages regional and federal actors to engage in more effective marine resource defense against illegal fishing and toxic waste dumping in areas under their jurisdiction. On November 19, 2012, UN Security Council held an open meeting to discuss piracy. The debate, which was the first held by the Security Council about this subject, was called by Indian Ambassador Hardeep Singh Puri and heard more than 40 speakers from different countries and international organizations.
Private initiatives.
There have been reports of pirates repelled by private initiatives. One such case would have occurred by the end of 2008, by armed personnel of transportation entrepreneur Buff Cortez. VSOS, a Seychelles-based company, was authorized in 2008 by the authorities of Seychelles to operate armed maritime security guards. From this strategic hub the company extends its operations throughout the Indian Ocean. Other vessel owners and shipping line companies have also hired private security outfits for assistance. One such firm is Espada Logistics and Security Group based in San Antonio, Texas, whose security officers provide on-board protection from a ship's point of entry to its point of destination. They also offer anti-piracy training en route to the Gulf of Aden, and have teamed up with African Shipping Lines, a leading international shipping line company, to provide security to vessels traveling along the coast of East Africa. Another private venture is MUSC, which specializes in counter-piracy and ship security. As of May 21, 2012, Nick Marquis of Triton Risk MSS states that not a single vessel with armed privately contracted maritime security contractors has been successfully hijacked by the pirates. A table of incidents from October to December 2011 shows pirate successes against armed and unarmed vessels. Pirates have steadily ventured further across the Lloyd's Joint War Committee, JWC, designated high-risk area, HRA, in order to evade naval patrols and search for easier targets. This is just one example of how pirates adapt their tactics to counter-piracy measures. Triton Risk MSS has produced a short analysis which highlights other probable shifts in pirate tactics, techniques and procedures in 2012-13. The maritime security industry has been actively trying to introduce self-regulation for private contracted armed security companies, PCASP, since 2010. Main industry actors are, Security Association for the Maritime Industry, SAMI, and the International Association of Maritime Security Professionals, IAMSP. Governmental initiatives include the UN's International Maritime Organization, IMO, and the Swiss government's International Code of Conduct, ICOC, initiative. As of spring 2012, one of the largest ship owners-operators organizations, BIMCO, has launched another initiative to bring standards into the maritime security industry through use of PCASP contracts for its members, called GuardCon, and ISO accreditation and certification standards for PCASPs.
Legislation. Jurisdiction.
In June 2008, following a letter from the Transitional Federal Government of Somalia, TFG, to the President of the UN Security Council requesting assistance for the Somali authorities' efforts at tackling acts of piracy in the Indian Ocean, the UN Security Council unanimously passed a declaration authorizing nations that have the consent of the Somali government to enter Somali territorial waters to deal with pirates. Suspected pirates captured in international waters have been tried in various countries. The Somali government questioned the authority of foreign countries to prosecute the pirates abroad. In response, the European Union attempted to focus the prosecutions closer to the Horn of Africa littoral by involving nearby territories. In January 2011, a report by UN Special Advisor on Piracy Jack Lang proposed that 2 special anti-piracy courts should be established in the stable northern Puntland and Somaliland regions of Somalia. It also recommended that a Somali extraterritorial tribunal be created in neighboring Tanzania. This prospective court would be subject to Somali law and function, but would be based outside Somalia due to the conflict that was then taking place in the southern part of the country. However, the latter proposal was rejected by the Somali authorities. This, along with legal, financial and security-related concerns, prompted the U.S. government to also oppose the recommendation of a Somali extraterritorial tribunal. A British House of Commons Foreign Affairs Committee report issued in January 2012 likewise rejected the idea as well as that of an international court, and recommended instead that special anti-piracy courts operating under national laws in nearby states should be established. In 2011, the autonomous Puntland and Somaliland regions of Somalia each reached a security-related Memorandum of Understanding with the Seychelles. Following the framework of an earlier agreement signed between the transitional federal government and the Seychelles, the memorandum called for the transfer of convicted pirates to prison facilities in Puntland and Somaliland. The TFG and the 2 regional administrations later signed a similar cooperative agreement with Mauritius in 2012, with the island nations scheduled to take on pirate suspects for trial and prosecution starting in June of the year. Kenya concurrently began serving as an additional location for trials of pirate suspects. In October 2012, its Court of Appeal stated that the country's courts could try pirates captured on international waters, as universal jurisdiction permitted all states to do so. In January 2013, the Somali government indicated that pirates interned in Kenya would be transferred to Somalia. The plan was conceived by the Somali authorities, although no specific date for the transfer was announced. As Somalia further develops its courts and prison facilities in coordination with the UNODC counter-piracy program, pirates held in other territories are expected to be transferred for domestic detention.
Trials.
In May 2010, a Yemeni court sentenced 6 Somali pirates to death and jailed 6 others for 10 years each, for hijacking a Yemeni oil tanker, killing 1 cabin crew member and leaving another missing in April 2009. In May 2010, another Somali, Abduwali Muse, pleaded guilty in a New York federal court to seizing a United States flagship Maersk Alabama and kidnapping its captain. He pled guilty, and was sentenced to 33 years imprisonment. The first European trial of alleged Somali pirates opened in the Netherlands in May 2010. They were arrested in the Gulf of Aden in January 2009, when their high-speed boat was intercepted by a Danish frigate while allegedly preparing to board the cargo ship Somali, which was registered in the Dutch Antilles. The pirates were sentenced to 5 years in prison, which was less than the maximum possible sentence. It is unlikely the men will be returned to Somalia after their sentence, as Somalia is considered too dangerous for deportation. One of the 5 has already applied for asylum in the Netherlands. Consequently, there are concerns that trials in European courts would encourage, rather than deter, pirates. However, trials are continuing in Europe. More recently in Paris, November 2011, 5 men were sentenced to between 4 and 8 years. 1 man was acquitted. A trial also continues in Hamburg, Germany. In Italy, 9 Somali pirates had been tried and sentenced to prison terms of 16 and 19 years. They had been found guilty of attempted kidnapping for extortion and illegal possession of firearms, in connection with October 10, 2011 attack and hijack of an Italian-owned cargo vessel, the Monte Cristo. On April 1, 2010, the USS Nicholas, FFG-47, was on patrol off the Somali coast when it took fire from men in a small skiff. After chasing down the skiff and its mothership, U.S. military captured 5 Somalis. Judge Raymond A. Jackson, a federal district court judge in Norfolk, Virginia threw out the piracy charge, which dates from enactment in 1819 when piracy was defined only as robbery at sea. The penalty for piracy is mandatory life in prison. The U.S. government appealed the ruling. In March 2011 the 5 Somalis were sentenced to life for piracy to run consecutively with the 80-year term. In the same month 13 Somalis and 1 Yemeni suspected of hijacking and killing 4 Americans aboard a yacht made their first appearance in federal court in Norfolk. On January 28, 2011, pursuant to the naval engagement of the pirate mother vessel MV Prantalay, a hijacked Thai trawler, by the INS Kankaso, the Indian Navy and the Indian Coast Guard killed 10 pirates and apprehended 15, while rescuing 20 Thai and Burmese fishermen that were held aboard the ship as hostages. The rescued fishermen were sent to Kwachai while the 15 pirates, of Somali, Ethiopian and Kenyan origin, were taken to Mumbai. The Mumbai police confirmed that they registered a case against the pirates for attempt to murder and various other provisions under the Indian Penal Code and the Passports Act for entering the Indian waters without permission. In May 2012, a U.S. federal appeals court upheld the convictions of 5 pirate suspects, a decision which prosecutors described as the first United States-based piracy convictions in 190 years. In October 2013, Mohammed Abdi Hussein, Afin was arrested in Belgium for having allegedly masterminded the 2009 hijacking of the Belgian dredge vessel Pompey, abducted its crew, and participated in a criminal organization. According to federal prosecutor Joan de la Motte, Hussein was responsible for the hijacking of dozens of commercial ships from 2008 to 2013. He is currently awaiting trial in Bruges, the first prosecution of a pirate leader by the international community.
2013 collapse of piracy.
By December 2013, the U.S. Office of Naval Intelligence reported that only 9 vessels had been attacked during the year by the pirates, with 0 successful hijackings. Control Risks attributed this 90% decline in pirate activity from the corresponding period in 2012 to the adoption of best management practices by vessel owners and crews, armed private security aboard ships, a significant naval presence, and the development of onshore security forces. In January 2014, the MV Mozambique initially sent out a distress signal indicating that it was under attack by pirates in the Red Sea. However, the container vessel turned out instead to have been seized by Eritrean military units as it entered Eritrea's territorial waters.
Piracy in Somalia.
Piracy off the coast of Somalia has been a threat to international shipping since the second phase of the Somali civil war in the early 21st century. Since 2005, many international organizations, including the International Maritime Organization and the World Food Programme, have expressed concern over the rise in acts of piracy. Piracy has impeded the delivery of shipments and increased shipping expenses, costing an estimated $6.6 to $6.9 billion a year in global trade according to Oceans Beyond Piracy. According to the German Institute for Economic Research, a veritable industry of profiteers has also risen around the piracy. Insurance companies, in particular, have profited from the pirate attacks, as insurance premiums have increased significantly. A United Nations report and several news sources have suggested that piracy off the coast of Somalia was caused in part by illegal fishing. According to the DIW and the U.S. House Armed Services Committee, the dumping of toxic waste in Somali waters by foreign vessels also severely constrained the ability of local fishermen to earn a living. In response, the fishermen began forming armed groups to stop the foreign ships. They eventually turned to hijacking commercial vessels for ransom as an alternate source of income. In 2009, a survey by Wardia News found that approximately 70% of the local coastal communities at the time strongly support the piracy as a form of national defense of the country's territorial waters. The pirates also believed that they were protecting their fishing grounds and exacting justice and compensation for the marine resources stolen. Some reports have suggested that, In the absence of an effective national coast guard following the outbreak of the Civil War and the subsequent disintegration of the armed forces, local fishermen formed organized groups in order to protect their waters. This is reflected in the names adopted by some of the pirate networks, such as the National Volunteer Coast Guard, which are September 18, 2013. The pirates were holding one large ship and an estimated 50 hostages. According to another source, there were 151 attacks on ships in 2011, compared with 127 in 2010, but only 25 successful hijacks compared to 47 in 2010. Pirates were holding 10 vessels and 159 hostages in February 2012. In 2011, pirates earned $146 million, an average of $4.87 million per ship. An estimated 3,000 to 5,000 pirates operated. By February 2012, 1,000 had been captured and were going through legal processes in 21 countries. According to the European Union Naval Force, EU NAVFOR, intensified naval operations had by February 2012 led to a further drop in successful pirate attacks in the Indian Ocean, with the pirates' movements in the region at large also significantly constrained. About 25 military vessels from the EU and NATO countries, the United States, China, Russia, India and Japan patrolled approximately 8.3 km2, 3.2 m square miles, of ocean, an area about the size of Western Europe. On July 16, 2012, the European Union launched a new operation, EUCAP Nestor. An analysis by the Brussels-based Global Governance Institute urged the EU to commit onshore to prevent piracy. By September 2012, the heyday of piracy in the Indian Ocean was reportedly over. Backers were now reportedly reluctant to finance pirate expeditions due to the low rate of success, and pirates were no longer able to reimburse their creditors. According to the International Maritime Bureau, pirate attacks had by October 2012 dropped to a 6-year low, with only one ship attacked in the third quarter compared to 36 during the same period in 2011. By December 2013, the U.S. Office of Naval Intelligence reported that only 9 vessels had been attacked during the year by the pirates, with 0 successful hijackings. Control Risks attributed this 90% decline in pirate activity from the corresponding period in 2012 to the adoption of best management practices by vessel owners and crews, armed private security aboard ships, a significant naval presence, and the development of onshore security forces.
History.
In the early 1980s, prior to the outbreak of the civil war in Somalia, the Somali Ministry of Fisheries and the Coastal Development Agency, CDA, launched a development program focusing on the establishment of agricultural and fishery cooperatives for artisanal fishermen. It also received significant foreign investment funds for various fishery development projects, as the Somali fishing industry was considered to have a lot of potential owing to its unexploited marine stocks. The government at this time permitted foreign fishing through official licensing or joint venture agreements, forming 2 such partnerships in the Iraqi Somali Siadco and Italian Somali Somatel ventures. After the collapse of the central government in the ensuing civil war, the Somali Navy disbanded. With Somali territorial waters undefended, foreign fishing trawlers began illegally fishing on the Somali seaboard and ships from big companies started dumping waste off the coast of Somalia. This led to the erosion of the fish stock. Local fishermen subsequently started to band together to protect their resources. After seeing the profitability of ransom payments, some financiers and former militiamen later began to fund pirate activities, splitting the profits evenly with the pirates. In most of the hijackings, the pirates have not harmed their prisoners. Combined Task Force 150, a multinational coalition task force, subsequently took on the role of fighting piracy off the coast of Somalia by establishing a Maritime Security Patrol Area, MSPA, within the Gulf of Aden. However, many foreign naval vessels chasing pirates were forced to break off when the pirates entered Somali to the pirates' initial motivations. However, as piracy became substantially more lucrative, other reports have speculated that financial gain became the primary motive for the pirates. Combined Task Force 150, a multinational coalition task force, took on the role of fighting piracy off the coast of Somalia by establishing a Maritime Security Patrol Area, MSPA, within the Gulf of Aden. The increasing threat posed by piracy has also caused concern in India since most of its shipping trade routes pass through the Gulf of Aden. The Indian Navy responded to these concerns by deploying a warship in the region on October 23, 2008. In September 2008, Russia announced that it too would join international efforts to combat piracy. Some reports have also accused certain government officials in Somalia of complicity with the pirates, with authorities from the Galmudug administration in the north-central Hobyo district reportedly attempting to use pirate gangs as a bulwark against Islamist insurgents from the nation's southern conflict zones. However, according to UN Secretary-General Ban Ki-moon, both the former and current administrations of the autonomous Puntland region in northeastern Somalia appear to be more actively involved in combating piracy. The latter measures include on-land raids on pirate hideouts, and the construction of a new naval base in conjunction with Saracen International, a UK-based security company. By the first half of 2010, these increased policing efforts by Somali government authorities on land and international naval vessels at sea reportedly contributed to a drop in pirate attacks in the Gulf of Aden from 86 a year prior to 33, forcing pirates to shift attention to other areas such as the Somali Basin and the wider Indian Ocean. By the end of 2011, pirates managed to seize only 4 ships off the coast of Somalia, 22 fewer than the 26 they had captured in each of the 2 previous years. They also attempted unsuccessful attacks on 52 other vessels, 16 fewer than the year prior. As of October, Somali territorial waters. To address this, in June 2008, following a letter from the Somalian Transitional Federal Government, TFG, to the President of the UN Security Council requesting assistance for the TFG's efforts to tackle acts of piracy off the coast of Somalia, the UN Security Council unanimously passed a declaration authorizing nations that have the consent of the Transitional Federal Government to enter Somali territorial waters to deal with pirates. On the advice of lawyers, the Royal Navy and other international naval forces have often released suspected pirates that they have captured because, although the men are frequently armed, they have not been caught engaging in acts of piracy and have thus not technically committed a crime. Due to improved anti-piracy measures, the success of piracy acts on sea decreased dramatically by the end of 2011 with only 4 vessels hijacked in the last quarter versus 17 in the last quarter of the preceding year. In response, pirates resorted to increased hostage-taking on land. The government of the autonomous Puntland region has also made progress in combating piracy, evident in recent interventions by its Maritime Police Force, PMPF. In part to further curtail piracy activity, the London Somalia Conference was convened in February 2012. According to the International Maritime Bureau, pirate attacks in the Indian Ocean had by October 2012 dropped to a 6-year low. Attempted hijackings fell from 237 in 2011 to 75 the following year, with successful attacks plummeting from 28 in 2011 to 14 in 2012. Additionally, only 1 ship was attacked in the third quarter of 2012 compared to 36 during the same period in 2011.
Summary of recent events.
Somali pirates have attacked hundreds of vessels in the Arabian Sea and Indian Ocean region, though most attacks do not result in a successful hijacking. In 2008, there were 111 attacks which included 42 successful hijackings.